Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to a very hairy installment of our Kimberbell Mystery Quilt. Yeah, I said hair because look at this cute little hedgehog. Now, I know hedgehogs, it's not really hair, it's like quills, right? But there's just something so super cute about a little hedgehog. And the fact that they're nocturnal, that they can be like a little scrappy, you know what I mean? And then here's a little funny story that I heard once about the hedgehogs in England. So they were having an issue with hedgehogs getting like run over along the side of the road and everything because were they trying to cross the street? What were they trying to do? So they built tunnels under the road so that they could cross the street under the road, right? Because as a hedgehog crossing the street, it just looks like a pile of leaves. Well, it didn't work because you know why? They couldn't make little signs like hedgehog crossing here because they can't read. So then it was determined that they would heat the tunnels because it was really the warmth of the road that the hedgehogs were going to. So I just think that's a super cute story and how it is so much fun when we go that extra mile for our little creatures, right? So we're going to go the extra mile today as well because we're going to create a little hedgehog quilted background on our Bernina 990. Now, this hedgehog stitch is stitch number 903, and it's also available on a 475 and things like that. So you could simply just make a little project batting sandwich with your project batting and then your peach fabric here and just do rows and rows of stitching of the little hedgehog stitch if you wanted, or you can do it the easy way where we're just going to embroider it out on our machine. So I've talked enough, right? So let's get to this cute project for September.
Well, here we are in September, and there's a little close-up picture of our little buddy, the hedgehog. And if you're just joining us, or if you've forgotten how this works, we've been at this since about December of 2024. And each block has a video that lives on YouTube for free. And then if you sign up for our program, you get a presentation deck that you're looking at me we're using right now. Okay. And we have done a lot of blocks. You can see our hedgehog is what we're doing today, but we've done some sashing strips, we've done some bees, mushrooms, snails, we've done a pieced block, and we've done some larger blocks with different sorts of flowers, which leads me to this month. So our kits are gone. And thank you for all of you who have participated in our program and picked up a kit from us. And don't forget, those of you that are using our program, I give you all of your important links right here on this page. Stabilizer this month, we're going to be using fusible backing or fusible woven. I use fusible woven. It's just I have it in bulk. Fusible woven is the OESD version of the Kimberbell fusible backing. I'm also using light mesh cutaway, project batting, and I would recommend if you're new to this paper tape, but this month I actually didn't use anything. I just kind of held those pieces in place with my fingers. If you're running low on the stabilizer, just go ahead and click the Buy Now button, and that will take you to purchase a bundle to replenish some of the stuff that you have gone through because, like I said, we are now on month 10 of this mystery quilt journey. Our supplies were pretty lean. This month we don't have a lot of doodads. We've got some embroidery threads. There's 4 colors this month. There's the charcoal 4174. I'm using brown 1133, gold 1141, and cream 0101. Applique scissors are what I'm pretty much using to do my trim in place applique, but I'm also using them to cut the pieces to create that chenille look that we're doing this month. That's what makes our hedgehog hairy. You can also use a seam ripper like Kimberbell recommends, and you might just want a toothbrush and a little squirt bottle as well. And you'll see when we get to that. So the fabric that's in your kit, there are 3 fabrics. There's the background peachy little floral print. There is the little piece that you're going to need for the hedgehog head. And then there are lots of layers to cut for the hedgehog body, 4 layers in total. And the only thing you're going to be interfacing with fusible woven is that back peach fabric just to give it a little bit of body. So every month there are some designs that you're going to get from Kimberbell. Even though you bought the program from us and you gave us the money, we submit your email to Kimberbell, and then Kimberbell sends you out a monthly email with a link to download this month's files. September is no exception. If you're new to this, you might just want to get your presentation deck when it comes to you and click here to watch how to learn to retrieve your files. So the designs. Now, it's no secret that Kimberbell gives you a background quilting design that's in the Kimberbell instructions, and then you're going to place a hedgehog on that piece. We're doing the block by block quilting. And this month, what's really cool is I busted out my medium magnet hoop. And for those of you that have a Bernina 5 through 9 series, we can do this without any modifications at all because our medium magnet hoop can do 2 hedgehog blocks in one, and you can be doing both blocks at the same time. Now, every month we do create our own block by block design, and we're doing a hedgehog from that stitch I mentioned in the intro, stitch number 903. Now, if you're timid and you would rather just go with what we made, you can download your files right here when you get your presentation deck, but it pretty much looks like this. And yeah, well, why don't we just see how I made this? Okay, so over on my 990, I have a blank slate here. And what I want to do is create that super cute hedgehog design in the background. And this is a little bit strange because my simulator does not have that medium magnet hoop. So we're going to be working in the maxi hoop. But I'm giving you the instructions regardless if you decide you want to use the maxi hoop or you want to pick up a medium magnet hoop, which works on the 5 series, 7 series, 8 series, and 9 series machines. So I first built my hedgehog design over on the sewing side. So let's hit our little hamburger and go to the sewing side, which is the straight stitch and the zigzag. We don't have to change our foot or anything like that, but we are going to go over to our decorative stitch squiggle, and we're going to pick the folder, which is 901. It's represented by the little baby bottle there. And then we're going to pick stitch number 903. And I want you to go to your edit crayon and select the repeat and make that 9 times. So 9 and then green check mark. Then we're going to go directly back to our embroidery brain. And you're going to notice in your personal folder that whatever you picked on the sewing side is going to show up here. So let's go ahead and click this and see our little hedgehogs. Super cute, right? So when you pick the hedgehogs, it's going to default to the smallest hoop possible. So that's where we're going to have to go back to our hoop and select our maxi hoop again. In your case, if you're working directly on your 990 and you have the new firmware update, you're going to be picking the medium magnet hoop. Now we're going to rotate our design 90 degrees counterclockwise. And then we're going to go to our back button and go to our endless embroidery. Now, I don't want my little positioning arrows here, so let's deselect those. And let's reduce our number of embroidery designs to 20. And we want to space these out to be 3 millimeters apart. And that's just an arbitrary number that I chose. You might want to pick a different number. Maybe you want them to be even more spread out. So now we're going to say green check mark. And now I want to do a couple of things to this design. I want to ungroup it. And I want to pick every other row. So we're going to make sure we're only selecting one thing. See how whatever I touch there, I'm selecting. And if it's an even number layer, I want you to mirror it left, right. Perfect. Now, I've already preloaded my designs on a USB stick, so now I want to add, and I'm picking my USB stick icon. I am picking my quilt design from Kimberbell. And the first thing that I want to do is ungroup it. So I go back to edit and ungroup, and I want to eliminate their quilting design. So I'm going to select that and swipe away to get rid of it. And now what I want to do is take this now and group it together. So I'm going to select some and touch these four items and group. Now I want to make a duplicate and I want to space these out. So I want one of these to go right down there at the bottom of the hedgehog. And then I'm going to select peaks. Find it again. This one here. And I want this one to go all the way to the top like that. And now another thing that we can do is I might not want to stitch this row of hedgehogs, right? They're kind of in the seam allowance there, whatever. So I can simply click on those hedgehogs and delete them. Easy peasy, right? I could even delete that row. It's kind of, indescript there. I'm going to just delete. And now if I zoom, that looks pretty good to me. Now we want to add the hedgehog. Now to make your life easier, we could group all of these things together if we want to wiggle things around, right? So let's start with this grouping and select some and group. And now you can see that it's grouped there. So now let's deselect that one and now select the other ones. And now let's group these. And now let's take both of these together and move these up so that they stitch last. So now essentially what's going to be happening is this is going to be our template for stitching down our project batting and our fabric. And it's going to do that one and then do this one and then do our quilting pieces. That's exactly what we're looking for. And we also have an option here. If I wanted to move my hedgehogs down just a wee bit, I could go up here to the move around icon and I could use my multifunction knobs or my plus and minus right here, kind of move my hedgehogs down in that space. And the same goes over here, just to kind of move those down in that space. So now we want to add a hedgehog, which I've also loaded. And it's grouped together, and that's fine. And I can take him and move him here. And I can take another one. Let's make a copy or a duplicate. All right, perfect. So now here's a fun thing that we can do. We can select some, and now let's pick all of these things in a group and use our alignment tools under Arrange to center vertically and center horizontally. And now our little guys in the middle. So then we will deselect these guys and then select this grouping and do the same thing. And now let's stitch out. So a couple of things that we want to remember. First of all is initially when I do my piece, I want my quilt settings on and all of this. And when I turn quilt settings on, it gets rid of thread away and it gets rid of the thread cutting, right? But if I leave quilt settings off and I have thread away on, it's not that big of a deal for right now, but as we get stuff in our hoop, that thread away wiggles the fabric around and we could have a car crash. So for Kimberbell stuff in general, I turn this off. Now, like I mentioned, turning the quilt settings on turns off the thread cutters and thread away anyway. But here's a cool thing. I want to keep the quilt settings on as I'm building the quilting side with the project batting and everything. But then when we stitch the hedgehog, I'm going to actually turn quilt settings off, but I want to make sure that thread away is off. And then as far as multicolor goes, I would like this to reduce thread changes because it's going to stitch all of the placement, all of the tack down, all of the placement, all of the tack down, and organize all of my little hedgehog designs together so I can stitch both blocks at one time. Now, one last thing when we stitch this out. Because we're using the medium magnet hoop, the magnet hoops work on the honor system. So when I select the green check, I get this screen that is asking me, which size magnet hoop do you want? Medium, large, or medium border? Now, the medium magnet is blue. That's the one that's selected. So I'm going to go ahead and just touch that one, make sure that one is bright blue, and click my green arrow. And now we're ready to stitch.
Okay, so this month I'm going a little bit out on a limb here. And I changed up the quilting color. And the quilting color that I'm using is
The light brown, number 1141.
and now the first step is just to stitch our placement stitch. And now we're going to place our project batting on top, and this has just been cut to fill the medium magnet hoop. And now let's trim. And remember, it's safe to take the hoop off of the machine to do your trimming. Now remember, this is more than we need, but we have to be careful because I have designed this so that you guys can fit this on your 5 series machines if you're using one of those. And now it's time to stitch our little hedgehogs. So the next piece that we're going to do, and by the way, I turned the quilt setting off, and if you want to break your thread properly, you just press the thread cutter once you've turned your quilt settings off, and then that'll cut your threads and let you just have your regular little piece of thread like this, right? Okay, so now it's time to do the placement stitch for the hedgehog snout. And the little snout are these lighter brown pieces here. So we're just going to stitch those in place. And I'm using color number
1141.
Same as my quilting design. I talked about turning my quilt settings off, but I didn't. So let's do that again. Ready? Cut. To cut your little jump stitch here. There we go. All right. And now we're going to place one of these guys over the snout. It's hard to see, okay? But it's somewhere where your needle is hovering, right there, like so. And then down here, notice I'm not using any tape. So now we're gonna trim, and I'm gonna start with this one at the bottom. And I'm getting pretty close to this, but this is gonna be covered with a satin stitch. If you'll notice, I've not even taken my hoop off of the frame. I can kind of get to these guys without doing that. Now the cover stitch, which is a satin. So now we're going to switch to our charcoal color, number 4174, and we're going to stitch the eyes and the nose. Okay, so now this is color number 1133. It pretty much matches our hedgehog fur or quills pretty well. So we're going to thread that up now, and we have to follow these instructions really closely. Okay, so the first pass with our color number 1133 for the hedgehog quills is we're going to do the placement stitch for the hedgehog. And remember, it's going to do it on both of our hedgehogs. Okay, so now we're going to place this into position. This is just one layer. Remember, we cut 8 of these pieces, but we only need 1 layer for this application. So we're going to sew 1 layer to the top hedgehog and 1 layer to the bottom. Okay, so now we're at our second hedgehog. And then we're gonna have to trim. So I'm gonna just gently remove my guy here and trim close to the edge. I'm not bothering going around every point. I'm just kind of going around the bulk of the hedgehog. I will get this deep point there. There we go. And the same with this one. All right, so now this is going to do a decorative edge stitch to hold down the hedgehog's coat. Okay, so now that we are at some of our final steps here, right? We have 3 layers of the brown that we need to put on. And this is what the chenille is going to be made with. And this is a basting stitch. So this stitch is meant to be removed. It's just holding all 3 layers on together.
we're going to do the rest of this out of the machine, right? And it's totally safe to remove the magnet hoop now. And then we're going to put our spacer back into position. There we go. And now we're going to trim our hedgehog around the basting lines. And you don't have to get that close. The rougher the better, because I mean, after all, this could be an unkempt hedgehog, a hedgehog with the crazy hair like the girls like. You know what I'm talking about. Harry Styles-esque. Do girls even like Harry Styles? Is he still a thing? Or have they moved on to someone else? Or the boys, I think the boys and the girls liked Harry. Okay. So now this little stitch that's around here, you can just get your little sharp scissors in there to remove that basting stitch. It's going to be helpful as we go through and we get rid of a solid like thing and we start to play around with texture. And then as we do this, we may want to make sure that we have like some tweezers to really get in there and pull these threads out that are the basting stitches. Okay, once you get all the basting stitches removed, we're going to start cutting. And just to have a visual for you, we're going to cut in between all of the fur. You may or may not need to draw a line to kind of keep it straight, just in between all of those lines. So it emulates something that looks like hedgehog fur. Now, another important thing is we are not going to cut the base fabric, only the top 3 layers. And you might discover that you left a few little basting bits behind. Just trim those. And I'm using scissors instead of a seam ripper, but you could certainly use your seam ripper to get under there and trim. All right. So it should look something like this. Then they're recommending that you get a squirt bottle and just mist a little bit and use a brush. I like to just use my discarded fabric and rub and fray. And then if you need to cut some little extra bits, because all of these little pieces should not be connected at the end. And remember, don't cut the bottom layer, that is. There we go. Okay, so now if you get something that's a little stringy, it's okay to cut. All right, so now we're just going to do the same thing with the other hedgehog. Okay, so now let's look at our hedgehog. So as you can see, I have fluffed. I gave him a blowout. Looks like he's just been to the dry bar, don't you think? Okay, so now, just like every other time, we are going to trim these down to 4.5 by 4.5. And so I like to just double check here my measurements and everything. And pretty much 4.5 is that fabric sew down stitch. So let's just go ahead and trim that. And I think this one is one of my favorites that we've done on this journey.
What do you think? Super cute. We're almost there. Let's see. We've got October, November, and December left. That's only 3 months. So that fabric pile in your Kimberbell kit, it should be waning a little bit, don't you think? Well, I certainly hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you will tune in to more of our Kimberbell mystery quilt, as well as our other tutorials on our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. Remember, it's easy to get to. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy sewing, and be kind to your hedgehogs. See ya.